I've been doing this a long time, and I'm going to tell you my story. Before I start that, how many have never heard my story before? Okay, good. That's enough of you that I'm going, okay, am I preaching to the choir? All right. So this was my international bestseller last year. I left that slide in for some reason. So that was me circa 2003. A big boy. A very big boy. And I weighed 410 pounds. And the sad part was when I thought I weighed 335, I was 410. Bit of a cognitive dissonance, don't you think? And so I was on 3 prescription medications. Gee, Jimmy, that should have been your clue. High cholesterol, which I now is not a big a deal as I thought it was then. High blood pressure, which is always a big deal, and breathing problems. I had to do that Advair. Anybody have to suck in that? Yeah, Advair. Oh, it's horrible. I was on all those drugs. Not healthy, right? This is what I was eating. Christine, my wife here, will tell you I was very good at making Hamburger Helper because that's what I learned growing up. My mom was a single mom for most of my childhood, and I had crappy garbage, as I call it now. Hamburger Helper, Fruit Loops, yes, great, tasty, delicious, nutritious, yeah, right. Well, actually, it does say on there, all the essential vitamins and minerals, yeah, we know better now, don't we? And of course, Coca-Cola. What was it? Dr. Rangan had the top 4 out of it was in Australia. It was Peter. Talked about 4 of the top 5 selling things were Coca-Cola. Well, I was a part of that. I was buying the 12-pack cases, right, Christine? Drinking 16 of those bad boys a day. I was a carbaholic. Total garbage. But when my mama wanted to lose weight, guess what she did? Fat-free ice cream, rice cakes, fat-free ranch. Anybody done all those things before? Don't be bashful. We've all been on the low-fat diet. In fact, my brother Kevin and I used to take those rice cakes from my mom. Let's put some peanut butter and jelly on it, see if it makes it taste better. No, it does not. So this is the food pyramid. I was a child of the 80s, and in the 1980s, they taught us about the food pyramid. And you've already seen why the bottom of it, Andreas gave you a great illustration of that's exactly the wrong foods to eat. And yet that's what they promoted to us. And fat, oh my gosh, it's going to kill you, right? They told us that. We bought into it. My mom bought into it hook, line, and sinker in the 1980s. And if you can't read that in the back, it says, my low-fat diet really works. The fat hangs lower every day. So 1999 was a big year for me because that was the year that my brother had 3 heart attacks that nearly killed him. I can't say this story without crying now. And it woke me up that I needed to do something. So I went on a no-fat diet in 1999. Anybody ever done that? I'm sorry. Please don't do that. But again, it's what I was taught growing up in the 80s, that was the way you needed to lose weight. So here's my brother Kevin. He had the heart attacks, morbidly obese, type 2 diabetic, cardiovascular disease, as we just learned from Jeff's talk. They're all connected. And he had heart disease. I knew I was heading in that same direction if I didn't change something. So my default was, I got to cut my fat, and I got to eat more healthy whole grains, and I got to somehow exercise more, even though I didn't give a crap in the world about any of that. Remember, he was just 32. So no fat. And of course, what happens when you don't eat fat? Everybody in this room can shout it loud, shout it proud. You get hungry. And not just hungry, hangry, right? So you get that angry hunger, and it's a real thing. And you get angry. Right, Christine? Was I a fun person to be around in 1999? Of course, yes, I needed fat. Of course, I wanted that, and that's what I wanted. And one day, Christine, after I'd been very successful at the no-fat diet for a little while, hangry, mind you, but successful at weight loss, Christine said, will you go to McDonald's just this one time and get me something? And then I was like, well, can I? And I was very successful at the time, having lost weight. She said, sure. So I have Big Mac, large fry, Coca-Cola, and you know what happened next. It didn't stop. It was a binge like you've never seen before. Maybe some of you guys have. Maybe you've been there. How many of you have felt so hungry, so frustrated by low-fat diets that you said, screw it all, I'm eating whatever the heck I want? Raise your hand. Yes, we're amongst friends. We've all been there, and literally stuffed my mouth, and I blinked and gained it all back, and then some. 2004 was a fun year. 2004 was the year that I had the life change, the reason I'm standing in front of you right now. What happened in 2004? I had an epiphany. And it was this that started it all. I was a substitute teacher in a 6th grade classroom. And from the back of the room, while I'm writing the assignment on the board, I hear, man, Mr. Moore's really fat. I can still hear it like right there. And I turned around, and of course the whole class was laughing. I started laughing to keep from crying. Yeah, kid, you're right. I am totally fat. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Then there was a rock climbing thing. I was watching some adults and kids go up and down this rock climbing thing, and I was like, well, dang, that looks like fun. Remember, I thought I was about 335. I can handle that. Of course, I'm tall, so that hides a lot of the weight. I try to do it, and I can't. I tried, I failed, and I couldn't do it. And I'm going, what in the world is going on? So then this lovely lady decides for Christmas of 2003 to give me a diet book. That person is my mother-in-law, Christine's mom. My mother-in-law, come on, laugh, you guys. Mother-in-law gave me a diet book for Christmas. What's up with that? But I'm really glad because that diet book changed my life. And of course, she'd given me diet books every year, big stacks of them. You know, I get diet books with what I do now, interviewing people for a living, but she was giving me Dr. Phil's diet book. Today can be a changing day in your life. You know, you do all those diets because that's what you're taught that you have to do is diet to lose weight. So what book did she give me? Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution. Who has read that book? I would hope most of this crowd has. Who has implemented that book by the book? A few less of you, okay. And this guy totally rocked my world. Remember, I grew up a child of the 80s, low-fat diets, all this dogma. And here was this guy telling me, eat less carbs. Wait a minute, that's where you're supposed to get your energy from. Where do you have energy if you don't eat carbs? This guy's whacked out of his mind. Whoa, he's a cardiologist and he's telling people eat more fat and saturated fat. And yet, failure after failure after failure of all these diets made me want to try this. Because, and I'm sure, who else has been there? You've tried all these diets, you're just frustrated out the get-go, and yet low-carb, high-fat, well, dang, that seems to make sense, even though it didn't make sense maybe in your mind at first. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you just kind of start to grasp it. In fact, the Atkins diets penetrated our culture. This was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. The nutritional philosophy of the Atkins diet suggests restricting what? This had to be a $100 question because that's so easy. So, 2004, I went on the Atkins diet. I lost 180 pounds. And I tell people that I started January 1st, 2004. So that was New Year's resolution to lose weight, but it actually turned into something much bigger. It became a new life resolution to get healthy. And the framing of my work has really shifted. Obviously, it was all about weight loss because I needed to lose weight when I was 4'10". But now it's really about getting people to not have that diabetes, which then leads to the vascular disease like you just talked about. That's kind of my mission in life now, is to help other people. And off all medications. I got off the blood pressure medication pretty quick because I was getting off the couch, Christine, right? And I'd start going, whoa, what's going on here? And I'd have to grab something. She's like, you still taking the blood pressure medicine? Yeah, the doctor says take it. Get off the med. So I threw it away. Never took it again. Still have great blood pressure. I came off the Advair pretty quick. I was breathing pretty fine after a couple weeks. But it was that Lipitor I held on to a really long time, like 9 months, even though I probably didn't need it. And I finally said, look, I'm getting off all these meds. I feel fantastic. And it really changed my life. So I was living the healthy life after this. And so I started blogging about this. How many have read Living La Vida Low Carb blog? Thank you. And so about a year later, this guy says, you should be a podcaster. This was 2006. Nobody in the health realm was doing anything podcast. Anybody in the room not know what a podcast is? Hallelujah. I've done a few of these talks and they're like, what do you mean by that podcast thing? Is that like a radio show? Yes, it's like a radio show. What station? Oh, I'm in trouble. But I've gotten the great opportunity to talk to so many people in this realm. Basically, all these speakers here today, I've talked to just about every one of them on the show, consider them great friends. And I'm now the longest running health podcast on the internet, over 1,050 episodes. So if you haven't listened before, you got a lot of catching up to do. So through this, I've become a sponge of literally all things related to health. And I noticed some trends starting to pop up when it came to nutritional health. In 2010, there was this thing called paleo. How many in here self-identify yourself as a paleo eater? Raise your hand. Okay, a few of you. Most of you are keto, right? Yeah, or low carb. So I interviewed people like Rob Wolf, Mark Sisson, many others in the Primal Paleo community. And in 2011, I attended one of their conferences that had just started called the Ancestral Health Symposium. In fact, it's coming to Denver this year for those of you who are local. So I started adding in the paleo principles to my lifestyle. Now, what does that mean? For me, it meant real food, because for a long time in my low carb journey, not in 2004 when I was losing weight, but in the years that followed as I started learning, I was learning some bad things. And some of the bad things was allowing products in that probably weren't exactly low carb. And so you can test for that now, get you a glucometer. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But I added real food, and it really added not just the macro discussion, but the micronutrient discussion, which I think most of you are nodding your head up and down that that's a good thing, and I agree. In 2012, I actually did this N=1 experiment testing nutritional ketosis. I read Volek and Finney's book, The Art and Science of Low-Carbohydrate Performance. I think I've sold more of those for you than probably anybody, any individual. But I learned about all the various intricacies of what keto nutrition is all about. And I applied that with my experience being low carb with the paleo. So here's some statistics for paleo. The Google Trends, as you can see there, paleo's kind of gone off the charts in the last few years. In 2013 and 14, it was the #1 most Googled diet search term. So that was pretty cool. But guess what? Keto has a very similar line. So I was like, okay, I am doing paleo and low carb ketogenic. So I'm in the top 2 there with what I'm eating. But there's this funny little thing that's happening between the low-carb ketogenic world and the paleo world. There's a fight. No, we're better. You should eat paleo. No, we're better. You should eat low-carb ketogenic. But check this out. This is what low-carb keto people, feel free to laugh if you think it's appropriate. We think about paleo, okay? Oh, it's all lean meats. How many believe that or believed that? Well, you did because Lauren Cordain put it in his book. In 2000, lean meats. That's what paleo is. Keto people also think that paleo is all about honey, maple syrup, and other sugars. Anybody believe that? Yeah, and they do. They put a lot of that in their foods. Starches like white rice and potatoes. This is my favorite phrase. The so-called safe starches. Because if it's safe, you can eat it. Expensive grass-fed organic foods, that's all you can eat on a paleo diet. Anybody believe that? Yeah, and so they kind of get a little bit legalistic about that. And then finally, they're young, and everybody there lifts. They all do CrossFit. So that's what keto, paleo, or keto, low-carb people think about paleo people. So let's switch gears. What do the paleo people think about most of us in this room? We all eat artificial sweeteners. We just like guzzle aspartame. We all eat low-carb products. There's no other food out there on the planet but products. We all eat foods with vegetable oils because it's high fat. I know, right? Got some groans on that one. We all have, and Andreas mocked this a while ago, so thank you, Andreas. We all have a glucose deficiency. I want to pull a Jason Fung and do a curse word in here, but I don't curse and talk, so what the heck? And then finally, we're just lazy and never exercise. Any of you in the keto world ever felt that that's the way they see you from the paleo community? Yeah. So my question is, why don't we take the best of both worlds? Rangan hit on this a little bit yesterday. Why do we have such squabble when we agree on a lot of things? So let's look at what we agree on. And these are 8 ways to do both keto and paleo to enhance your health. Number 1, eat real food. This is the well duh of the day. And yet, you'd be surprised how many people think, and with all deference to our sponsors back there, that those are kind of the main things that you eat when you're on a healthy diet. They're not. They're meant to be treats. And yet, people are eating those because they say, well, they're low carb, therefore they should be good. So I say, why don't we make real food first and foremost, or at least be the goal? You know, I went from 16 cans of Coca-Cola to suddenly going, okay, now what do I do? Because my carbohydrate intake, and I did the math on this, you guys, with all the Cokes I was drinking and all the snack cakes and all the crappy carbs I was consuming, I was probably getting about 1,600 grams of carbohydrates a day. Yes, we're all having a coronary on that one. And went to 20. And so I couldn't just shift away from all those sugary sodas without some transition. So I can see these things being a transition, and diet soda was that for me, and finally got off of that last year. But eat real food should be the goal. And I've had discussions with Eric Westman about this. Well, that's a little unrealistic because you want people to do it. And I think somebody over here yesterday made a comment about, you know, if it's grain-fed meat, at least that's better than the crappy garbage. And I agree. I think it was you, sir. It was really, that is the goal. You just want to get them off the carbs. But the ultimate goal is to get on as good a real food as possible. And that's where we can meet with the paleo community. Check your blood sugar. I so want those people in paleo that think that their honey and maple syrup and the treats and things that they make don't affect them. Oh yeah? Let's pull out a glucometer. The glucometer won't lie. In fact, how many of you in this room actively check your blood sugar virtually several times a week? That's great. And see, I mean, it's so stupid easy to go buy a glucometer at Walmart, Walgreens, wherever you buy these kind of things. It's about $15, and the strips are about 30 to 50 cents a piece, maybe $1 for the more expensive ones. But it is so easy to do that. And if you're worried about pricking your finger, which I can see in the eyes of a few of you, you're like, it doesn't sound like fun. It's not hard. You go on the side of your fingers, and one trick that I do, because I've tested so much over the past few years, is blow out when you prick. So, and you don't feel it. Trick of the day. And of course, all the type 1s are laughing at me right now because they don't even think about it. But checking your blood sugar is so critical, because it will tell you how food is impacting you. And if you have that so-called safe starch and you test at 1 hour postprandial after you've done eaten the potato, for example, And then 2 hours, if it's still high, it ain't so safe for you, right? So check your blood sugar. Number 3, we need to realize that people with insulin resistance need this more than anybody. Anybody self-identifying here as insulin resistant? Can I put 10 hands up? It's hard, but not impossible, which is why all of you are here now. You want to learn more about how you can heal that. I'm doing some fasting experiments right now to try to help heal that. And I think it's staying engaged is the big thing. And especially for people with the insulin resistance, you're the ones that probably need this more than anybody. Number 4, start to become a believer in the importance of macronutrients. So paleo people, they like to use this phrase that they're macronutrient agnostic, which is an interesting phrase, although I think some of them need to become believers because they have that insulin resistance that would require them to be low-carb ketogenic. Number 5, produce ketones through regular periods of fasting. So that could be as simple as an intermittent fast. So how many of you regularly on a pretty consistent basis do like 16-8 kind of intermittent fasts? It's pretty easy to do when you're keto, right? Because you're just not hungry. And so doing that can definitely help. And definitely the paleo people are all over intermittent fasting. Number 6, consume more saturated and monounsaturated fats. So coconut-based products, avocados, Kerrygold butter. Can I get a witness, anyone? Stuff's amazing. So they believe in the saturated and monounsaturated fats being healthy, and so do us keto people. So we agree on that, and we should coalesce around that. Number 7, realize, and I stole this slide from you guys, so thank you for that great 0.5 to 3.0 being nutritional ketosis. Realizing nutritional ketosis is a completely natural, normal metabolic state. If I hear one more paleo person tells me my very low-carb diet is going to give me a glucose deficiency or make my brain explode or whatever, my brain really will explode because it's nonsense. And we need to realize ketosis is a very powerful tool that can be used to heal your body. Some of us need to be in it much longer periods of time than others. Some of you may like to cycle in and out, and that works for you, good for you. But for most people, they worry about it because, ketosis, it's such a toxic thing because they've been told by their doctor. I recently had some labs done, and I peed in a cup, and it came back 3+ on the ketones, and they're like, we're very concerned about ketoacidosis. I said, you're an idiot. You're an idiot because my blood sugar was very low. I'm like, in the presence of low blood sugar, higher ketones isn't an issue. And the look on their face was like, how do you know this stuff? Google my name and you'll find out. And then finally, number 8, we are not the same. If I see one more person that says, well, if you just do this, 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 and this, everything will be okay. And I'm like, okay, that works for you. I'm going to find what works for me. And what works for you might change, where you need to tinker and test every once in a while and switch things up. So why can't we all get along? So here are the things keto and paleo agree on. No refined sugars or grains. Eating healthy sources of dietary fats, which is not the vegetable oils. Processed foods are blatantly unhealthy. Nourishing your body through whole foods is a good thing. Pursuing greater health through nutrition. And the way we're doing things now, it ain't working, right? So my friend in Australia, Damon Gameau, he did this film called That Sugar Film. Who's seen That Sugar Film? Go find it on iTunes or Hulu or Netflix or one of those, but find it and watch it because it is so awesome. But he has this stop eating crap mantra, and crap stands for carbonated drinks, refined carbohydrates, added sugars, and processed foods. You know, if we eliminated all of that, what would grocery stores look like? You see it like little tumbleweed going through the middle of the aisles because it would be so empty. Leave my coconut oil, but take all that crappy garbage. We don't need it anymore. Thank you very much. That's it.